What happens when comedy's most unfiltered provocateur meets television's most beloved host? You won't believe what unfolds when Ricky Gervais crosses a line that even Graham Norton can't tolerate, leading to one of the most explosive confrontations in talk show history. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because you're not going to believe what unfolds. Last night's episode of The Graham Norton Show was meant to be a typical Friday evening of witty banter and celebrity charm. Instead, viewers witnessed something unprecedented, a complete meltdown between two of Britain's biggest entertainment figures that ended with one of them storming off set in fury. The tension began building the moment Ricky Gervais settled into the famous red chair. Unlike his usual animated self, Graham Norton seemed unusually formal, almost cold in his introduction. "Ladies and gentlemen, Ricky Gervais," he announced with what many are now calling a forced smile. Something was already brewing beneath the surface. Initially, the conversation flowed with Gervais's typical, irreverent humor about his latest Netflix special. But the atmosphere shifted dramatically when Norton brought up recent criticism of Gervais's comedy material. "There's been quite a bit of discussion about some of your jokes," Norton said carefully, his voice taking on a more serious tone. "Some people feel you've crossed certain lines." Gervais immediately bristled, leaning forward in his chair with that familiar combative gleam in his eyes. "Oh, here we go," he scoffed. "Lines? What lines? Comedy doesn't have lines, Graham. That's the whole bloody point." The studio audience fell silent as Norton pressed further, clearly prepared for this confrontation. "But surely you understand that with your platform comes responsibility. Some of your material has genuinely hurt people." What happened next sent shockwaves through the studio. Gervais let out a bitter laugh that echoed through the sudden silence. "Hurt people? You mean hurt feelings? When did everyone become so fragile? I thought you of all people would understand that comedy is about pushing boundaries." Norton's face flushed visibly as he tried to maintain his composure. "There's a difference between pushing boundaries and being deliberately cruel, Ricky. Some of your recent jokes about transgender people—" "Stop right there," Gervais interrupted, his voice rising dangerously. "Don't you dare lecture me about comedy. You sit here in your comfortable chair, asking softball questions to promote whatever film or book someone's peddling, and you think that gives you the right to judge actual comedians?" The attack was personal and brutal. Norton's trademark warmth completely evaporated as he straightened in his chair. "I'm not judging you. I'm asking you to consider the impact of your words." But Gervais was just getting started. "Impact? The only impact I care about is making people laugh. Not everyone, because that's impossible, but the people who actually understand comedy. Not the perpetually offended mob that you seem so desperate to please." Norton's voice shook slightly as he responded. "That's incredibly dismissive of people's genuine concerns. Some of your fans have said they feel alienated by your recent material. Then, they were never real fans." Gervais exploded, gesturing wildly. "Real fans understand that comedy evolves, that comedians explore difficult topics. They don't need their hands held through every joke like children." The studio was dead silent now, the audience clearly uncomfortable with the escalating hostility. Norton made one final attempt to salvage the situation. "Ricky, I think we're getting off track here. Perhaps we could—" "No, Graham, let's stay right on track," Gervais snarled, his voice dripping with contempt. "You want to know what I think? I think you've become exactly what's wrong with television today. You're so terrified of offending anyone that you've forgotten what entertainment actually means. You've turned into a sanitized corporate puppet." Norton's face went white, then red. For a moment, he seemed genuinely speechless. When he finally found his voice, it was barely controlled. "That's enough. I won't sit here and be insulted on my own show." "Then maybe you shouldn't have started this conversation," Gervais shot back. "You brought up the controversy, you questioned my comedy, and now you can't handle the response? This is exactly the problem. You dish it out but can't take it back." Norton stood up abruptly, his hands trembling slightly. "I was trying to have a civilized discussion about responsibility in comedy. Instead, you've turned it into a personal attack on me and my show." Gervais remained seated, but his voice grew even more venomous. "Responsibility? The only responsibility I have is to be funny. And if you can't handle that, maybe you should stick to interviewing people who'll just smile and nod at whatever sanitized questions you throw at them. The final blow came when Gervais added with a cruel smile, "At least now your viewers will have something interesting to talk about for once." Norton's composure finally shattered completely. "Get out," he said quietly. Then louder, "Get out. Get off my set. Get out of my studio. I don't care who you are or how successful you think you are. Nobody talks to me like that in my house." For a moment, Gervais looked genuinely surprised by the intensity of Norton's reaction. But his shock quickly morphed back into defiance. "Fine," he said, standing up and straightening his jacket. "I didn't want to be here anyway. This show used to be fun before you turned it into group therapy." As Gervais walked toward the exit, Norton called after him, his voice still shaking with anger. "You know what, Ricky? You're right about one thing. Comedy should push boundaries. But it should also come from a place of intelligence and empathy, not just cruelty disguised as truth-telling." Gervais paused at the studio door, turning back one last time with a smirk that would later be replayed endlessly across social media. Intelligence and empathy don't get Netflix specials, Graham. Controversy does. With that final, devastating comment, Ricky Gervais walked out of the studio, leaving Graham Norton standing alone on his set, visibly shaken, and struggling to regain his composure as cameras continued rolling. The audience sat in stunned silence, having witnessed what many are calling the most explosive talk show confrontation in British television history.